All right, man, peace. You know, brothers in life, sometimes we could be a little bit too gifted for our own good. Sometimes we can have our hands in too many different cookie jars, and it can compromise our abilities to be great at one or two things when we're trying to be good at everything. And I think that that's one of the problems that LeBron James is going to find as he continues his transition from being the best player in the NBA to being the quote-unquote media mogul and sports agent that he strives to be, and eventually NBA owner. Why do I say that? Because he recently made an appearance at one of Zion Williamson's games. He tried to mask it by bringing along a couple of his Laker teammates, but it was very obvious what he was doing. He wanted to make his presence known as an introduction to Mr. Zion Williamson to try to bring him into Clutch Sports. Right now, Clutch Sports has become an anathema to many franchises in the NBA. So I think that it would behoove LeBron James to show a greater deal of scruples whenever he thinks about trying to make an appearance here or there in whatever capacity he's going to claim. Of course, he's going to allege that he was just at the game as a viewer. But we all know that when you're associated with a sports agency like he is with Clutch Sports, people are going to assume that he's there to make a pitch to Zion Williamson. So anyway, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
All right, guys, here we go. So LeBron James received a lot of criticism for being courtside for Duke's win last Saturday night against Virginia because it looked like a recruiting trip for the King. He addressed that with our Dave McMenamin, saying, a recruiting trip? I didn't talk to anybody. They're only saying that because it's rich. When Shaq came to see me play in high school, when AI came to see me play in high school, they weren't saying that it was a recruiting trip then.
Maybe because they didn't run their own agencies, you idiot.
But because it's Rich Paul and LeBron, now it's a recruitment trip.
Yeah, that's kind of how it goes, especially when you run your own sports agency. Look, it's nothing against LeBron, okay? I'm not calling him somebody who's not particularly intelligent. Sometimes I do when it's glaring. There are certain situations where you have to show more prudence and you have to understand how things are going to be perceived. There are only going to be so many more situations where you could pull the "they're doing this because I'm black" type stuff. It's getting old and it's getting hackneyed. I know that he realizes that he's going to get a lot of support on social media, and he makes so much money that he could pretty much say whatever the hell he wants, no matter how baseless it is. But it's going to get old very quickly, especially when you do have to have a rapport with various members of the corporate world. They're not going to take too lightly to every time they tell you no, that they're a racist or what have you. There's more than enough racism that you don't have to make false allegations here and there.
Trip. Now, Rich is a threat to everybody.
No, it's not so much that he's a threat to everybody, because Rich Paul is not the first black agent. What he's trying to do, as well as yourself, is you guys are trying to bring anarchy into their business paradigm. And of course, they're not going to like that. If somebody walks down the street with his wife and you decide that you're just going to try to take his wife from him while he's there, of course he's not going to like you. Now, if that's not his woman, if that's just his ex, or that's just a woman that he's walking down the street with, and you know that, and there's the respect there, he's going to have more respect for you. There's a big difference between trying to take somebody's wife as opposed to trying to hit on a beautiful woman who's walking down the street by herself. And that's basically been the average business paradigm of the NBA, or at the very least, trying to hit on somebody's wife when the husband's not around. Because let's not beat around the bush. There have been great players who've decided that they wanted to leave their team a year and a half, 2 years in advance, and the agent may have worked with the owner and orchestrated a trade. They just didn't make it public. There are a lot of things that go on behind closed doors, and for the sake of mutual respect, they keep it behind closed doors. What LeBron and Rich Paul want to do is they want to try to strong-arm everybody. They have no respect for what's going on. They're kind of like the dudes who try to take over the block. Eventually, those guys get found somewhere with a damn bullet in the back of their head. Those are just facts. If you don't have respect for your environment, they are going to move you out the way. Now, it's not going to happen to LeBron because there are too many sponsors, there are too many multi-billion-dollar corporations who need him and view him as an irreplaceable asset. But still in all, there's a certain amount of decorum that you should utilize if you're trying to invade an environment. And don't try to act like you're not doing what everybody knows that you're very blatantly doing. You're at the game to make yourself seen, to make yourself known. That's why you sat on the baseline. You didn't sit up in the 20th row like you did when you came to watch Steph Curry play. You came when you sat down on the baseline so that Zion would see you. So that maybe he say to himself, oh, wow, LeBron came to see me play. He must want to sign me. Everybody knows that that's what you want him to think, and that's what you want him to feel.
Stephen A. Is he recruiting Zion?
Clearly.
don't think they were recruiting him that day, but the reality is this. LeBron James and Rich Paul are being heavily scrutinized. In the case of Rich Paul, I would make the argument that it's not unfair. There's a game within a game that's played in every business, in every walk of life. And if Rich Paul is playing it better than most, get the hell over it.
Well, I'm not quite sure if Rich Paul is playing it better than most. I've seen the brother in interviews. He's very intelligent, very sharp. But what he knows that he has on his side is he has the best player in the NBA. And he knows that that best player in the NBA has a $1 billion contract with Nike. So basically, they have capital to play with. Therefore, that gives him more freedom to be disrespectful and to be disregarding and to tell people what they're going to do as opposed to request what he feels like they should do. That means that he's going to destroy a lot of potential relationships, and you have to be very careful about that because word does get around.
It's just that simple. He's doing what he's doing. But I will say this. I do not want to hear LeBron James or Rich Paul, because I think it was LeBron James that said to Dave McMenamin, throwing the fact that he's black as well. That part is nonsense. Here's why. Some of the elite agents in the business representing NFL players. Bill Duffy is one of the best to ever do it. He's black. Henry Thomas, God rest his wonderful soul, who passed away last year. He represented D. Wade, Chris Bosh, and others. He's black. Years ago with the Bill Stricklands of the world, representing Rasheed Wallace and others, he was black. The Goodwin brothers, Aaron and Eric, elite in this business. To this day, they are also black. So you can make the argument about people scrutinizing Rich Paul and doing so unfairly. And I have no problem with it until you bring up race. Race has nothing to do with that.
Well, that's LeBron's new default mechanism now. Because remember, he's woke. He has to lead all the social justice warriors and the internet revolutionaries to freedom. So every time you tell LeBron James no, it's going to be because he's black, because he has to play out his new Muhammad Ali kick. All these guys think that they're Muhammad Ali now all of a sudden, allegedly.
What has something to do with it is that unlike Shaq, unlike AI, there is a direct correlation and the relationship between Rich Paul and LeBron James, because people believe LeBron James is Clutch Sports.
I would love to see LeBron James sit down with a real interviewer who's going to ask him real questions just to see how he responds. That's why I stated when that whole issue broke out between himself and the chick from Fox News, Laura Ingraham. If he was truly Muhammad Ali would have went on her show and made her look bad. And he would have had her laughing, and he would have had her wanting to give him some ass by the end of the interview. LeBron James has none of that type of swag. He has none of that type of intellect, so he can't do that. All he could do is sit back behind Twitter and behind the facade of all of his wokety-woke, pro-blackety-black idiots and make all of these ridiculous statements about race, showing that he has no understanding of anything. And when it's really time for him to provide some level of insight, he never has any. Because the wokety-woke shit for LeBron is to amplify his profile. That's all it's about.
They don't believe Rich Paul is quote-unquote representing LeBron. They believe LeBron James is Clutch Sports.
Of course, he's the hidden hand. That's what he is.
Which means that somehow, some way, he's benefiting from the clientele that they ultimately accumulate.
Of course he is, but they're too smart for that. Whatever money they're making off of Clutch Sports, LeBron James is having that money sent to some Swiss bank account somewhere. So you're not going to be able to trace it.
And because of that is why the scrutiny is coming. I don't think Rich Paul deserves it. He's just doing his job. I don't think that LeBron James and Rich Paul should be scrutinized for going to see Zion Williamson, because it's perfectly within their right to do it. But you have to anticipate that the scrutiny is going to come, and that race has nothing to do with it in this case.
As is often the case on this show, I have prepared statements to make about this, tell you how I feel. But you've said something interesting that I want to respond to. I want to do that first.
Sure.
You're right about claims of racism. It is important not to dilute them with claims where it's not merited, because it dilutes legitimate claims which actually exist and fogs the picture.
Correct.
So if that's the way you feel about it, and you don't think race plays a part, I think it's important that you say that. I hadn't thought about it along those lines. This is how I think about it. Is LeBron James not allowed to develop a relationship with a peer in the near future? with a colleague in the near future. When people say recruiting Zion, to what? His agency? Because it's not to the team. Zion will play where he is drafted, LeBron.
Well, of course, they will be talking about his agency, you idiot, because he's going to get revenue from Zion Williamson signing with Clutch Sports. It's just that the money that he earns is not going to appear in his bank account. He and Rich Paul are far too intelligent to ever have any business transaction take place between himself and Clutch Sports while he's still playing. The money's being forwarded to some offshore account. LeBron will access it after he retires. He makes more than enough money. He does not have to access his Clutch Sports money, but believe me, they are the same entity. And LeBron understands the impact and the power of him just making an appearance. If you're Michael Jordan, all you have to do is sit in the audience of a certain sporting event, and the athlete who's participating will say to themselves, wow, I wonder why he's here. I remember Floyd Mayweather had a fight back in 2005 against Sharmba Mitchell, and Michael Jordan appeared at the fight. Why is that? Because he was courting Floyd Mayweather to become a brand Jordan athlete. And even in the fight, I believe that Floyd walked into the ring with an Air Jordan headband on. So Michael Jordan was in the process of trying to recruit Floyd to become a part of brand Jordan. That's all it was about. It is not that difficult to figure out. So all of these protestations from LeBron James and his sycophants, oh, what are you talking about? LeBron is not there to recruit anybody. How could he recruit when he has to go through the draft? Nobody's saying that LeBron James is trying to get Zion Williamson to come play with the Lakers. What he's trying to do is to allocate an asset for his company. It's very, very transparent.
LeBron's got nothing to do with that. That's one. Two, if you think LeBron is clutch and therefore there's a conflict of interest and they are tampering at times with things, this is what I have to say to teams around the league who make that claim. Prove it or shut up. Prove it or shut up. Just like I'm sitting here saying, yeah, the Lakers are being tampered with. You hear rumors around the league, hey, don't send them to the Lakers. But the league could easily say, prove it. You know, we're just, we don't prove that we don't think their offer was good enough. Oh, you can't, right? So shut up. Now the shoe's on the other foot. You can't have it both ways. If you can't prove that there's a conflict of interest, if they're not breaking any rules, but you just assume behind the scenes Rich Paul and LeBron James, and how would we ever prove that? That's right. You can't. Shut up. Next.
Right, but how could there not be a conflict of interest when we all know that LeBron James is the most high-profile agent for Rich Paul? LeBron plays with the Lakers, and Rich Paul has gone out of his way to try to get one of the other top players in the NBA to be traded to the Lakers. So that already is precedent for a conflict of interest.
Look, the reality is, it happens with every star player. If Michael Jordan, his agent, was able to track other players because of his fame.
That's very true, but that's not really what the conversation is about. Your statement would be applicable if Michael Jordan was getting a kickback for sending Charles Barkley and Patrick Ewing over to David Falk. Your statement would be applicable if Michael Jordan was telling David Falk to have all your top clients come sign with the Chicago Bulls. So what you're saying is not making any sense.
Magic Johnson is going to be able to get meetings with players, star players. Ben Simmons looking to reach out to meet with Magic Johnson because he's Magic Johnson. LeBron James has that effect. As far as Rich Paul, you got to take your hats off to LeBron, because as much as it's a plus, it can be looked at as a minus. Normally, when players hire their friends or their family, it doesn't work out. In this situation, Rich Paul, Mav Carter, these guys are all competent to do their job. It is a...
Well, no, they're beyond competent. Maverick Carter and Rich Paul are exemplary at what they do. They're beyond competent.
The storm. It's a mess, but it's actually working out. And LeBron James, he's a sports fan. You'll see him at an Ohio State game, a Cowboys game,
baseball game,
right? He went and watched Steph Curry when Steph was killing in the tournament. This man is a fan of sports. So I mean, I don't get it. This is just part of the...
How could you not get it? Clutch Sports is trying to take over and become the most prominent sports agency in the NBA. They're starting with the NBA, and then they're going to trickle over into other sports. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just don't try to deny it, because you know that if you confirm it, then the other agents, the other general managers all across the NBA are going to scrutinize you even more and focus in on what you're doing even more and try to put forth notions of collusion or tampering of other teams.
Part of the territory.
Well, I would say this. I get it. I agree with you and I agree with Max in terms of how people should feel. But I do get it. And the reason why I say you get it, because whether it's from competitive agents, whether it's from team executives who like certain agents more than they do others or whatever, it's very, very predictable what's transpiring. And what LeBron James and Rich Paul have every right to highlight is people try to diminish his boys at every turn. Yep. Maverick Carter is a brilliant brother.
Yes, he is. Very brilliant and a great conversationalist as well. He has the gift of gab, as does Rich Paul.
Rich Paul has done a brilliant job in building his brand with Clutch Sports and what have you. Randy Mims and what he's been able to do as LeBron's trusted friend. You know, Adam Medelson working in LeBron James' game. LeBron James is a savant and brilliant beyond measure, not just as a basketball.
Well, I'm not quite sure if he's brilliant beyond measure. LeBron James is a great administrator. He knows how to put people in their proper position, and he knows what people would be great at. So I give him credit for that.
Basketball player, but as a businessman that deserves our respect. But what comes along with that is that when you have a connection as a player to an agency where you're believed to be that agency, then people start talking about the unfair advantage that provides you, how it pretty much squashes the competition, and they're going to come for you. So if you're going to make an argument to ward that off, just don't bring up race, because you're implying that it's happening to Rich Paul because he's black, when in fact there's a plethora of black agents it doesn't happen to.
Well, Stephen A. Smith, what he's really saying is that the reason why he can pull the race card is because he's the #1 black man on the planet Earth right now. Remember, he's leading black people to freedom. So anytime somebody tries to stop him from his takeover, it's because he's black. It's not because maybe he and Rich Paul are utilizing some underhanded tactics to try to take over.
Who are in opposition to Rich Paul, who feels the same way that white agents feel about Rich Paul. You got to deal with all of that. And that's just what the situation is. That's the real of it.
Yeah, and nobody complains about Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is a owner of an NBA basketball team. He also has the first right to take a look at high school athletes. He has a high school all-star game. Not only that,
opposing owners have complained about Michael.
They complain about it, but it's not the same.
They complain, is all I'm trying to say. They complain too.
But
he has the first right to look at high school athletes, but what does that really mean? You talking about the Jordan Brand Classic? Everybody could look at those. Everybody could look at those high school athletes because they're going to play in the game. Now, if you're saying he has the right to hold tryouts to see who's good enough to perform in the Classic, I guess you could say that. But exactly what advantage are you going to get there, especially when you can't draft players straight out of high school?
But it's part of the territory. Yes. Michael has built an empire, so why complain about what he's built? Just go and do it yourself.
Coach K, you complain about the Olympic team, and my point about Coach K, well, it's an unfair thing recruiting for Duke. My point is, if Coach K is the best coach, you know what I have to say to all the other coaches who don't get to coach the Olympic team? Tough. Right, he's the reason people want to play it. It's an advantage that is successful.
I just want to make sure what the audience recognizes what you just brought up. That's different to me. Coach K, to me, there are plenty of coaches in college basketball who could have won a gold medal with the dream team caliber athletes that Coach K had available to him in 2008, 2012, 2016. My problem with Coach K was not that he coached it, it's that he coached it all 3 times, because you cannot tell me that from a recruiting perspective that USA Basketball, by naming Coach K the coach, doesn't give him a decided advantage.
I get that point.
Well, that's possible. I get your point there, but I don't think that Coach K would have had an issue with recruiting even if he were not the U.S. Olympic coach. And the fact of the matter is that prior to Coach K conforming to the one-and-done paradigm the last 3 or 4 years, John Calipari was known for bringing in the best recruiting class, and he's never been a part of, or at least as far as I know, he has not been a part of the U.S. Olympic basketball program. Maybe he has and I just don't know about it, but as far as I know, it's been Coach K and John Boeheim. And even if Calipari was a part of the U.S. Olympic basketball program, he was never on Front Street enough to get any publicity for it, but he was still getting the #1 recruiting classes in the country.
What I'm saying is this. If I'm USA Basketball, I don't care if I think we can also win with this coach or this player or that player, because when we started degrading the team little by little over time, then the world started beating us.
Agreed.
Then we got back to let's get our very best. I'm saying this. I don't care if it's fair to the lesser coaches. If the consideration is Coach K is the best, he gives us our best chance to win, then the fact that also helps him recruit is tough luck for the lesser coaches.
Everybody can't.
That should not have been allowed.
Everybody can't do it though. It's about respect. They demand Coach K. They want Coach K. LeBron wants Coach K.
Agreed.
Kobe wants Coach K.
And by the way, do you think Zion Williamson didn't like it when LeBron shows up to their games? Yes. More than when others show up to their games? Yes, because LeBron is better than the others. They like it. That is part of the compounding advantages of success. I don't see what the complaint in this case is.
Well, listen, in this case, I totally agree with you. I don't see what the case is. But generically speaking, the fact is that we live in America and in a world of sports more so than anything else, we try to entertain the notion of the closest thing to a meritocracy. And when something is so flagrantly imbalanced in certain ways,
when they take advantage of it,
people are going to complain.
Right, but Stephen A. Smith, how could you claim that you're in favor of a meritocracy when what you're truly espousing are socialist ideologies of we have to spread it around? Because if we're going by meritocracy, then it would be Coach K all the time because he's yet to be knocked off as being considered the best coach in college basketball. I mean, who else are you going to put in there? Roy Williams, maybe? Other than that, it's going to be Coach K. So you're not really putting forth a notion or sentiment of a meritocracy. You're putting forth socialist notions.
That's just a given. All I'm saying is that it's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair. Absolutely. Anticipate it. Shrug it off your shoulders like you said, for the most part. I don't agree with you with Coach K and the Olympic and the Dream Team. But everything else, I'm totally with both of you. But let's not act like it's a surprise. And let's not bring up race where it isn't warranted. Yeah. Save it for when it is.
Agreed.
What you're saying is don't play the race card.
Right,
What I'm saying. But identify racism where it exists.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
All right. We ready?
Agreed. Good segment. Either way, I do believe that Zion Williamson will probably end up with Clutch Sports. So I think that LeBron will end up getting what he wants in the long run. As of right now, the bidding, or at least the most visible bidding, seems to be between LeBron James' Clutch Sports, Jay-Z, who's the mascot for Rock Nation, and Floyd Mayweather and TMT Promotions. So we'll see who wins out. But anyway, peace.